Crimes against property are offenses that violate an individual's ownership, possession, and enjoyment of property rights. These crimes involve unlawful acts that result in loss, damage, or deprivation of property, often motivated by an intent to gain. The revised penal code categorizes these offenses based on the means used and the severity of harm inflicted. Robbery is a crime committed when a person unlawfully takes personal property belonging to another with intent to gain by using violence, intimidation, or force upon things. Unlike theft, robbery requires the use of force or intimidation, making it a more serious offense. The essential elements of robbery are: 1. There is a taking of personal property. 2. The property belongs to another person. 3. The offender has an intent to gain, animus lucrandi. 4. The taking is done with violence, intimidation, or force upon things. In robbery, where violence or intimidation is used, the penalties increase depending on the severity of the harm inflicted. When robbery results in homicide, rape, intentional mutilation, or serious physical injuries, the penalty is reclusion perpetua. When robbery results in less serious physical injuries, the penalty is reclusion temporal. In other cases of robbery involving violence or intimidation, the penalty is prison correctional to reclusion temporal, depending on aggravating circumstances. The Supreme Court has ruled in People v. De La Cruz that homicide or rape occurring before, during, or after the robbery still qualifies as robbery with homicide or robbery with rape, as long as the criminal acts are related to the robbery. Article 295 focuses on robbery where physical injuries result, but do not qualify as serious physical injuries under Article 263. The penalties vary based on the gravity of the harm inflicted. Article 296 covers aggravated cases of robbery, such as when it is committed by a band, organized group of armed criminals, in which case penalties are increased due to the heightened danger posed to public security. Robbery involves force, violence, or intimidation in taking the property, while theft is committed without violence or intimidation and is simply an unlawful taking. On the other hand, qualified theft occurs when the offender has access to the property due to a position of trust, e.g., employees stealing from employers, while robbery requires physical force or intimidation to take the property. Theft is committed when personal property is taken without violence, intimidation, or force upon things, and without the consent of the owner, but with intent to gain. Unlike robbery, theft does not involve physical force or intimidation against persons. It also includes the unlawful taking of electricity, water, and other utilities. Under Article 309 of the revised penal code, the penalties for theft vary based on the value of the property stolen. If the value exceeds PHP 12,000, the penalties are applied on a graduated scale, increasing as the amount stolen rises. For property valued at PHP 5,000 or below, the penalties are significantly lower. Qualified theft occurs when theft is committed under aggravating circumstances, such as a grave abuse of trust. This includes cases where the offender had lawful possession of the property due to employment or a domestic relationship, but misused that trust to commit theft. Qualified theft also applies when property is taken during calamities or public disturbances, where victims are more vulnerable. Due to the breach of trust and the added severity, the penalty for qualified theft is 1 degree higher than that for ordinary theft, ensuring stricter punishment for those who exploit relationships or situations of crisis to commit the crime. On the other hand, arson is the intentional act of causing fire with the purpose to damage property, cause injury, or endanger life. Arson can be categorized into malicious and non-malicious types. Malicious arson implies an intent to cause damage, while non-malicious arson can be attributed to reckless behavior, like uncontrolled burning that causes unintended damage. Conviction can result in imprisonment, fines, and civil liabilities for damages. On top of criminal charges, arsonists may also face civil suits for property damage and injury caused. Meanwhile, Malicious mischief is a criminal act involving the willful destruction or damage to another person's property without lawful justification. To secure a conviction for malicious mischief, the prosecution must establish 3 essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt. 1. That the offender deliberately caused damage to the property. 2. That such property belongs to another person. 3. That the damage was caused maliciously out of a desire to vex, annoy, or injure another. Apart from criminal penalties, a conviction for malicious mischief may also give rise to civil liability. The offended party has the right to file a separate civil case to recover damages. These can include 1. Actual damages, representing the value of the property destroyed or the cost of repairs. 2. Moral damages, if the property owner can prove that they suffered emotional distress or anxiety as a result of the damage. 3. Exemplary damages, if the court finds that the offender acted with gross negligence or bad faith. The penalties for malicious mischief depend largely on the value of the damage caused.